In this lesson, we are going to learn how to solve two-step equations. We are going to combine sections 1.4 and 1.5 together. If you remember, 1.4 is when we solved, when we had, let's say, x plus 2 equals 6. And the whole goal was to get x by itself, so we would subtract 2 from each side to get x equals 4. And then in section 1.5, we had something along the lines of 3x equals 18. And the way to get the x by itself would be to do the opposite that's being done to it. So since this 3 is being multiplied by the x, the opposite would be to divide, which would give me x equals 6. So in this lesson, we are going to combine these two steps of solving. We are going to be on page 126, working problem numbers 2 through 52 even. So looking at problem number 2, again this is on page 126, I have the problem 3x minus 1 equals 17. Now, if you remember your order of operations, they are parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, and addition and subtraction. So normally we go from parentheses through subtraction, but when we are solving, you notice that we do the opposite that's being done to x. So when we're doing the opposite that's being done to x, then you can remember that we need to do the order as in the opposite of the order of operations. So we're going to work on our addition and subtraction first, then we'll do the multiplication and division. So I've got subtraction and I have multiplication. So we have to use the opposite order of operations. So I'm going to work on the addition and subtraction first. So the way I can get this -1 to go away would be to add 1 to both sides. And if drawing that line through your equal sign so you can see both sides, that's perfectly fine. So now I have 3x equals 17 plus 1 is 18. And notice these canceled out because -1 plus 1 is 0. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 3 to get x equals 6. Remember, you can always check your answer by plugging it back into the equation that you started with. Okay, so let's look at problem number 4. I have 5x plus 3 equals 23. So we're going to work with the addition and subtraction first. Like it says here, we do the opposite of the order of operations. So the way we can get this plus 3 to cancel out would be to subtract 3 from both sides. Your 5x comes down. If you have 3 minus 3, that cancels out and gives you a 0. Bring down your equal sign. 23 minus 3 is 20. Now to get the x by itself, x is being multiplied by 5, so the opposite of multiplying by 5 would be to divide by 5. And remember what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So x equals 4. Number 6, I have 7 minus 4x equals -5. So the whole goal is to get this right here by itself. The first thing that we can do is move this 7 to the other side. So what do we do to this 7 to cancel it out? Well, it's a positive 7, so if I bring in a -7, that'll make these two cancel because 7 minus 7 is 0. And you're left with a -4x on this side. And I have -5 minus 7. If you write it out horizontally and you do your keep change opposite, you'll see that you get the answer of -12. And then to solve for x, you're going to divide by a -4. X equals 3. Number 8, I have 5 minus 4x equals 25. So number 6 is very similar to what we're about to do to number 8. We're going to subtract the 5 from each side. Those cancel, leaving us with -4x equals 20. And then we get that x by itself by dividing by a -4. The reason we want to use a -4, not a positive, is because we need these two numerator and the denominator to both be negative. Because if this was negative and this was positive, a negative divided by a positive would have given us a negative. So that's why they both have to be negative. So x equals 20 divided by -4 is -5. Problem number 10. I have x divided by 3 minus 2 equals 3. So the first thing I have to do is take care of the addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides, which gives us x divided by 3. The -2 and +2 cancel, equals 3 plus 2 is 5. And so the opposite of operation of x divided by 3 would be to multiply x by 3. So those 3's are now canceled, leaving me with x equals 5 times 3 is 15. Now moving on to problem number 12. Got 5 over 6x minus 9 equals 16. Don't let this fraction in front of x scare you. We're not even there yet. We've got to take care of that -9 first. So the way we do that would be to add 9 to both sides. So now I have 5 over 6x equals 25. And remember, I taught you how to do this 2 different ways. You can multiply by 6 first, because the opposite of dividing x by 6 would be to multiply by 6. So those 6's are going to cancel out, leaving us with 5x equals 150. And then we divide both sides by 5 to get x equals 30. The other way you learned how to do it would be if I had 5 over 6x equals 25. That's an x, sorry. So notice that we multiplied by 6 and divided by 5. So you may notice that these two are reciprocals of each other, meaning that one is just flipped. So we'll multiply this side by that 6 over 5. And you'll notice that these two are just going to cancel, leaving us with x equals 25 as a fraction is 25 over 1. 5 goes into 25 5 times. 5 times 6 is 30. I do not care which method you use. You can use this top one that takes a little bit more time, a little bit more effort, or you could use this bottom one, but it might be a little more confusing. So just choose whichever one works best for you and whichever one gives you the correct answer. Okay, and just to clarify, that would give you the correct answer every single time, no matter which method you chose, as long as you were doing everything mathematically correct. So whichever one you can do without making mistakes is what I mean by that. All right, so now number 14. I have 7x equals 18 minus 2x. The whole goal of this is to get x by itself. But in this case, we've got, I'm going to draw my line for the purposes of this problem. I've got an x on the left and I have an x on the right. So I need to get them both on the same side. So we learned in one of the sections we've just done, I'm not sure which one right now, we learned that we always move the smaller x to the other side. So between 7x and negative 2x, the smaller one would be the negative 2. So we're going to add 2x to both sides. And if you remember why we do the smaller one is because if you move the smallest one, you are always going to end up with a positive x. And that's the whole goal, is to get a positive x that's by itself. So 7x plus 2x is 9x. And then bring down your 18. And the negative 2x and the positive 2x canceled. Now, I'm going to get that x by itself by dividing by 9. X equals 2. Problem number 16. I have 4 times the quantity 2x minus 1 equals 2 times the quantity 3x minus 2. So the first thing we need to do here is distribute into all of our sets of parentheses. So we're going to do 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 equals 2 times 3x is 6x. And then 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. So remember, whenever you have a number outside of a set of parentheses, you multiply that number on the outside by everything that's in the inside of that set of parentheses. So now I've got an 8x on one side and a 6x on the other. So I move the smaller x, and I have to subtract 6x because if I added it, 6x plus 6x would have given us 12x. So that's why you have to subtract it, is because you want these to cancel. So 8x minus 6x is 2x. Bring down your negative 4 equals 6x minus 6x is 0. It cancels out. Bring down that negative 4. So now I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So now I have 2x equals 0. To get that x by itself, I divide by 2. X equals. Okay, so this is like saying that we had a pizza that was cut into 2 halves. Okay, so we split a pizza in half. And this is saying that we have 0 of those 2 pieces. Well, if we don't have any of those 2 pieces of pizza, then our answer is we have 0 pizza. We don't have any pizza. So whenever you have a 0 divided by a number, your answer is always going to be 0. Okay, moving on to number 18. I have 6x minus 5 equals 3x minus 29. So I need to get my x's on the same side. So I'm going to move the smaller one, which was my 3x. Then I'm subtracting it, so these 3x's will cancel. So now 6x minus 3x is 3x. Bring down your minus 5 and your negative 29. And keep in mind that 3x minus 3x canceled. Now I'm going to add 5 to both sides, which gives me 3x equals negative 29 plus 5. So remember your rule, when you're adding and your signs are different, you subtract them. So 29 minus 5 is 24, and then you keep the sign of whatever number was bigger, so that would be the negative. Now you divide each side by 3, which gives us x equals negative 8. Moving on to problem number 20. Got 4 over 3x minus 7 equals 11 minus 5 over 3x. So the first thing we need to do is get our x's on the same side. So I've got a positive 4 over 3 and a negative 5 over 3. Well, the negative number is going to be the smaller one. So I'm going to add 5 over 3x to both sides. Let me write this up here. So we have 4 over 3x plus 5 over 3x. So if we have 4 over 3 plus 5 over 3, 4 plus 5 is 9. And then you keep that same denominator when you're adding fractions. And then 9 divided by 3 is 3. So I have 3x based on what we just did at the top of the paper. Bring down your minus 7 and your positive 11. Now I add 7 to both sides to get 3x equals 18. And then I divide both sides by 3 to get x equals 6. All right, number 22. I have 2x plus 23 equals 6x minus 5. So I need to move the smaller x to the other side. So between 2x and 6x, 2x is smaller. So I'm going to subtract 2x, which will make those 2x's cancel here. So now I have 23 equals 4x minus 5. And I got 4x because 6x minus 2x is 4x. Now our x is on the right side this time. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have x on the right all day long as it's positive. So I'm going to add that 5 to both sides to give 28 equals 4x. I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and that gives me 7 equals x. So on problem number 24, this one's a little bit more difficult, so I'm going to go ahead and draw our line just to make sure we know where our left side is and where our right side is of our equal sign. So I've got a 7x minus 3x. 7x minus 3x is 4x. This is us combining our like terms. And bring down that negative 2 equals, I'm going to bring down my 8x, and then 5 plus 13, they're like terms, so I'll go ahead and combine them. 5 plus 13 is 18. So now I need to get my x's all on the same side, because the whole goal is to get our x's by themselves. So if I've got one over here and one over here, I need to get them all on the same side so I know which one to get by itself. You always move the smaller x. So the way to get this to cancel out is to subtract 4x from both sides. So those 4x and negative 4x, they cancel, leaving me with a negative 2 on this side 8x minus 4x is 4x. Bring down your 18. Now I subtract 18 from both sides, because the whole goal is to get that x by itself. So I take care of the addition and subtraction first before the multiplication and division. So -2 minus 18 is -20. Remember, your rule is to keep, change, opposite, then use your adding rules. So if you're adding and your signs are the same, you add them and keep the sign. So that's how it's a -20. Those 18s cancel, leaving you with 4x. Now to solve for x, you divide both sides by 4. -5 equals x. If you wanted to write x equals -5, that means the same thing. Now let's move on to problem number 26. On 26, we have 3x plus 3 plus 8x minus 9 equals 7x plus 5. So now, again, I'll just put this line here just to make it easier on everybody. So the first thing I'm going to do is combine my like terms. So 3x plus 8x is 11x. 3 minus 9 is -6. I'm going to bring down my rest of my problem. So to get my x's on one side, I move the smaller one. So I'm going to subtract 7x from each side, which gives me 4x minus 6 equals 5. Then I add 6 to both sides to get 4x equals 11. And then you divide by your 4. X equals 11 over 4. Just because you get a fraction for your answer, don't think that it's the wrong answer. Number 28, I have 7x equals 7 times the quantity 6 minus x. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of those sets of parentheses. So I do that by distributing my 7. So bring down your 7x. 7 times 6 is 42. 7 times -x is -7x. Now I want to get all my x's on one side, so I move the smaller. So since -7x is smaller than +7x, I move that one. So I'm adding 7x to both sides. 7x plus 7x is 14x. Bring down your 42, and those 7x's cancel. Divide both sides by 14 to get x equals 3. Now let's move to problem number 30. Problem number 30 says I've got 9 times the quantity 3x plus 2 minus 10x equals 12x minus 7. So the first thing you should do is distribute that 9 by multiplying it by every term inside of that set of parentheses. So 9 times 3x is 27x. 9 times 2 is 18. Bring down your -10x and your 12x minus 7. So after you distribute, you should combine your like terms if you have any. So I'm going to combine these two terms here because they're on the same side of the equal sign. So 27x minus 10x is 17x. I'm going to bring down the 18, and then I have 12x minus 7. So after you combine your like terms, you want to move all of your x's on one side. So I subtract 12x from both sides, because I want to move the smaller x. That keeps my x positive. So 17 minus 12 is 5x. Then I subtract 18 from both sides to get 5x equals negative 25. And then you finish by dividing by 5 to get x equals negative 5. So if you're a step person, we are far enough to where I can go ahead and just list out all the steps and you should understand them all. So step 1, if you have parentheses, you distribute to remove them. So distribute to remove parentheses. Then you combine like terms. Then you get your x's all on one side. And you do that by moving the smallest x. Okay? Step 4 is just to solve the rest of the way. Problem number 32. I have 3 times the quantity 3x minus 1 equals 4 times the quantity 3x plus 1. Excuse me. So we are now going to distribute that 3 first, and then we'll distribute that 4. So 3 times 3x is 9x. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. 4 times 3x is 12x. 4 times 1 is 4. Then I'm going to move all my x's on one side, so I do that by moving the smaller x. So my 9x's cancel. So I have negative 3 equals 12x minus 9x is 3x, and bring down your 4. Now I subtract 4 from both sides to get negative 7 equals 3x. If you don't know how I got negative 7, please look at section 0.3 notes, and that should help you. Those are your adding and subtracting rules of integers. And then you divide by 3. So your answer is negative 7 over 3 equals x. If you wrote x equals negative 7 over 3, I would accept that as well. Now moving on to problem number 34. I've got 7x minus 4 times 3x plus 4 equals 9. So the first thing you should do is distribute that 4. So bring your 7x down. You didn't do anything to that yet. Negative 4 times 3x is negative 12x. Negative 4 times positive 4 is negative 16. Bring down your 9. Now you combine your like terms. 7x minus 12x is negative 5x. Bring down everything else. Now we add 16 to both sides to get negative 5x equals 25. And then you divide both sides by that negative 5. X equals negative 5. Now let's look at problem number 36. I've got negative 4 times the quantity 2x minus 1 plus 3 times the quantity 3x plus 1 equals 9. So the first thing you should do is distribute that negative 4, and then you're going to distribute that 3. So negative 4 times 2x is negative 8x. Negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4. 3 times 3x is 9x. 3 times 1 is 3. Bring down your 9. Now you're going to combine your like terms. Well, negative 8x plus 9x. Well, that leaves you with simply an x. And then 4 plus 3 is 7. Bring down your 9. Now you subtract 7 from each side to get x equals 2. Okay. Now I've got problem number 38. I have 13 minus 4 times the quantity 5x plus 1 equals 3 times the quantity 7 minus 5x minus 15. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute that 4, and then I'm going to distribute that 3. So I'm going to bring the 13 down. Notice that 4 is negative. So negative 4 times 5x is negative 20x. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 equals 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times negative 5x is negative 15x. And then bring down that negative 15. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. Negative 20x doesn't have any like terms, but 13 and negative 4 are like terms. So 13 minus 4 is 9. Negative 15x doesn't have any like terms, but 21 minus 15 are like terms. So 21 minus 15 is 6. Now I want to get all my x's on one side. The smaller of these two x's, I've got a negative 20x and a negative 15x. The smaller one is the negative 20. So I add 20x to both sides. These 20's cancel, leaving me with 9 equals negative 15x plus 20x is 5x. Bring down your 6. So now I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides to get 3 equals 5x. And then I divide each side by 5 to get 3 over 5 equals x. Now we're looking at problem number 40. I won't give you any problems like this on any of your assignments because currently in the curriculum we do not cover decimals at all. But I am going to go ahead and do it that way. If you do want a challenge, then you can go ahead and see this problem. For the purposes of this problem, I am going to draw that line because it's going to be a little easier. So there are no parentheses to get rid of. There are no terms to combine that are on each side individually. So now I want to get all my x's on one side. Between 9.8 and 3.8, the smaller number is the 3. So I'm going to subtract 3.8x from both sides. 9.8x minus 3.8x is 6x. Bring down your 2. Those cancel out and give you 20. Now I subtract 2 from each side to get 6x equals 18. Those two's canceled. And then I divide both sides by 6 to get x equals 3. All right, now looking at problem number 42. You will absolutely have a couple of problems like 42 through 52 on your test, so please make sure you understand these. On problem number 42, I have 3x over 4 plus 1 over 4 equals 4. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this 4 over 1, because if I've got some things as a fraction, I'm going to go ahead and make everything a fraction. So I would always ask my class, who likes fractions? Normally we get the answer that nobody likes fractions, so I tell you guys to get rid of them. So between 4, 4, and 1, the common denominator is 4. So I tell my students to multiply each term by a 4. When I do that, I say, okay, I've got a denominator of 4. So 4 goes into 4 one time. My denominator is 4 here. So 4 goes into that 4 one time. And then 1 would go into 4 4 times. So we don't really need to simplify that there. So I have 1 times 3x is 3x. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 4 is 16. Hopefully at this point you know how to solve this problem. So we subtract 1 from each side to get 3x equals 15, and then divide both sides by 3 to get x equals 5. We're going to use the same concept for number 44. On 44, I've got x over 6 minus x over 8 equals 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is make that 1 over 1. So I multiply by what I would say would be the common denominator, which in this case would be 24. So I'm going to multiply each term by 24. So on this first one, I say, okay, my denominator is 6. So 6 goes into 24 4 times. I say that 8 goes into 24 3 times. And then 1 goes into 24 24 times. See, that doesn't really need to be simplified. So 4 times x is 4x. 3 times x is 3x, and I just brought that minus sign down. 24 times 1 is 24. This problem's pretty easy to finish. 4x minus 3x is 1x. If you wrote the 1, that's no problem. I don't write the 1. So x equals 24. Problem number 46. I have 2x over 7 minus 3x over 5 equals 6 over 35. So I'm going to multiply each term by 35. That's the number that every single number in our denominator will divide into. So 7 goes into 35 5 times. 5 goes into 35 7 times. And then 35 goes into 35 1 time. So 5 times 2x is 10x. Negative 7 times 3x is negative 21x. 1 times 6 is 6. So 10x minus 21x is negative 11x. And to finish up, you divide by negative 11. X equals negative 6 over 11. Just as a little heads up, it doesn't matter if you put the negative in the numerator, in the denominator, or in the middle. it doesn't matter, because if I said what is negative 6 divided by 2, you would tell me negative 3. If I would have said what is 6 divided by negative 2, you would tell me negative 3. So you can see by this example here, it doesn't matter where you put the negative, you'll still get the same answer. So I would accept your negative at any point in this answer. Okay, now let's look at problem number 48. On problem number 48, we have x over 6 plus 3 over 4 equals x minus 1 over 4. So a lot of people say 24 is their common denominator here. You can use 24, but there's a smaller number that they both divide into, which is 12. So I'm going to multiply everything by a 12. So everything that has a denominator, you multiply by 12. So 6 goes into 12 2 times. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 4 goes into 12 3 times. So this problem I'm going to do a little bit differently, so pay attention. So I've got 2 times x is 2x. 3 times 3 is 9. And then instead of multiplying this 3 times everything that's left over, I'm going to rewrite it as a set of parentheses just to make sure I don't make any mistakes. You might do okay on 48 and 50, but 52 is where you'll find you're going to make a mistake. So I distribute that 3 to get 2x plus 9 equals 3 times x is 3x, 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Subtract 2x from both sides to get 9 equals x minus 3. And then to finish up, you would add 3 to both sides to get 12 equals x. Moving on to problem number 50. I have 6x minus 1 over 5 minus 2x over 3 equals 3. So if you remember from the first two problems, I'm going to go ahead and put that 3 over 1. Just helps me for my visual purposes. Then I'm going to multiply everything with a denominator by 15. So before I multiply those out, I'm going to say 5 goes into 15 3 times, 3 goes into 15 5 times, and then 1 goes into 15 15 times. You don't have to rewrite that. So I'm going to rewrite this as 3, open parentheses, 6x minus 1. Negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. 15 times 3 is 45. So now 3 times 6x is 18x, and what we're doing is distributing that 3 into your parentheses. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Bring down the negative 10x and the 45. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. 18x minus 10x is 8x. Bring down your negative 3 and your 45. So now we add 3 to both sides to get 8x equals 48. And then you divide both sides by 8 to get x equals 6. So now let's look at the final problem of this lesson. Problem number 52. I have 4x over 7 minus 2x minus 3 over 3 equals 19 over 21. So the first thing you should do is multiply each term by 21. So 7 goes into 21 3 times. 3 goes into 21 7 times. 21 goes into 21 one time. So 3 times 4x gives me 12x. And then I'm going to rewrite this out so I don't make any mistakes. So that's a negative 7. And then you're multiplying it by 2x minus 3 equals 1 times 19 is 19. So where you may have made a mistake if you tried to skip some steps is that this is a negative 7. So what we're going to do is distribute that negative 7 into each term in that set of parentheses. So I bring down that 12x and say negative 7 times 2x is negative 14x. Negative 7 times negative 3 is a positive 21. Now I combine my like terms. 2x minus 14x is negative 2x. Now you subtract 21 from each side to get negative 2x equals negative 2. If you've got $19 and you spend $21, you took too much out of the bank. You didn't have enough, so you owe the bank $2. And then when you divide negative 2 on each side, you get x equals a positive 1. I hope this video has helped you. I wish you the best of luck.